All right, so we are following this live for you right now out of Willowbrook, California. We have very few details so far, but what we do know is that there is a car chase that has occurred that led to a shooting involving a federal agent on the ground there. So obviously you're looking at some of the images that we got in screen right over the past few minutes. A screen left is the live shot provided to us from our affiliate KTTV on the ground there. Paul Morrow is joining us now as we await more details on this car chase that led to a shooting involving a federal agent. Paul, please jump in.
So obviously they're going to review this for the use of force, especially in the current context of the Renee Good shooting. It'll come down to a number of things. Why did the officer shoot? Was that person, that is the agent, presented with deadly force? Was it an accidental firing? Did the person drive the car at him? Was there shots fired at the agent? These are all sort of the logical things that you would look at. One of the nuances is going to be what the pursuit protocols are for federal government. The local police these days almost all have protocols for when and how you can pursue. It strikes people a lot of times as counterintuitive, but the police actually won't pursue in a vehicle misdemeanor crimes, things like that, because they don't want to endanger the public for something that they feel is not that important and that we can get the person on later. So that would be something I'm sure they're going to look at. Who was the perp? Why was there a chase in a populated area? Obviously, we don't know much. We just have to, as we always say, of the first 100 reports, 99 are going to be erroneous. That's just because everybody is scrambling right now to figure out what happened.
Okay, so a little bit more information, and I just want to reiterate: the suspect was not hit, but the agent was hurt.
The tire marks show that the car was all over the road. You see all the marks, right?
This is according to high-level DHS sources at this moment, according to the details that we do have. But according to the LA authorities there and multiple sources, the call came in at 7:20 a.m. local time there. The shooting took place involving a DHS agent task force. They were conducting an operation in the Willowbrook Compton area of South LA. The suspect fled from the target location in a vehicle. The short vehicle pursuit ensued. Then the suspect's vehicle crashed into a parked car near the 2400 block of 126th Street. Very local details are coming in. An incident occurred immediately following the termination of the pursuit that led to a federal officer firing his or her weapon. Right. No person was hit by gunfire. All federal agents accounted for. All suspects have been detained. A little bit more information.
Yeah, I mean, look, everybody's mind is, of course, going to the immigration situation, but there's a very good chance this has nothing to do with immigration. DHS has an operational arm known as HSI, Homeland Security Investigations. They work in task forces. They work with the marshals. There's a very good chance this was a fugitive apprehension, or they had an arrest warrant on somebody. Could be gang related, could be drugs, could be anything. The fact that it happened so early in the morning argues to me you do operations very early in the morning when you're going to boom a door, you have a suspect identified, you want to get in there, execute a search warrant. So that suggests maybe they were running an operation on a location that they knew was dirty, and somehow or other this person twigged to it. They may have even fled from the scene, and there may be other people involved. The way that was worded suggests to me that there were other pieces in custody, and this one piece got into the car and fled. So, like I said, we're going to have to see how this thing teases out, but I know everybody's mind is going to the immigration.
It's a waste of my time.
ICE will launch an operation targeting Somalis with deportation orders who live in Minnesota. Local leaders say that is only a fraction of the roughly 80,000 Somalis who live here.
Turn around, turn around, turn around. No, just turn around, just turn around. Get back! Get back! Get back!
More than 2,000 ICE and federal agents are on the ground in Minnesota, pouring into neighborhoods across the city in what officials quietly described as a targeted federal operation.
3,000 ICE officers have been sent to Minneapolis, some of them with only a couple of months' training. We're driving when we see a woman at a bus stop.
Help!
ICE agents jump out of their car and pursue her down the middle of a main road.
Excuse me, sir, do you have a warrant for this lady's arrest? Excuse me, do you have a warrant for this lady's arrest, sir?
So you don't have an ID?
She tells officers she's an American citizen. They ask her to show her ID when she can't produce one.
Who the heck is this British woman? This is a waste of my time.
Netanyahu claims that Israel is the only safe place for Jews in the world. Netanyahu claims that Israel is the only safe place for Jews in the world. But because of his record, because of his brutality, because of the genocide that he has been perpetrating in Gaza, Israel has become the least safe place in the world for Jews.
I'm here today with Avi Shleim, who's one of the leading British-Israeli historians in this country, but who's almost never interviewed by Britain's mainstream media, and especially not during the last 2 years of Israel's genocide in Gaza. And we're here today to discuss how the Israel lobby is trying to curb free speech on the issue in this country, his own personal journey from Zionism to anti-Zionism, and how he's involved in a Palestinian group to try and charge the British government with issuing an apology and reparations for crimes committed in Palestine under colonialism. Avi, thanks very much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
We at Declassified have been trying to document the British support for Israel over the last couple of years as it's inflicted this horrific situation on Palestinians in Gaza. Why do you think that British governments back Israel so strongly?
One answer is the strength of the Israel lobby in Britain. There is Conservative Friends of Israel. Over 80% of Tory MPs are members. The majority of the cabinet ministers are members. This is the most powerful foreign policy lobby in this country. And they organize trips to visit Israel by MPs, and they keep in touch with the MPs. There is the Labour Friends of Israel, and the same happens there. The Israel lobby gives financial support for the campaigns of MPs, whatever party, who are pro-Israeli. But there is another explanation as well. There are commercial interests, very major commercial interests that tie Britain to Israel. There are the arms manufacturers in Britain who sell arms to Israel. So the military-industrial complex in this country also supports close relations with Israel.
And you mentioned Labour Friends of Israel there, Avi, as being one of the prominent lobby groups in the UK. When we've asked them, Labour Friends of Israel, about those trips, they've replied to us saying that such questions fuel, quote, anti-Semitic tropes and conspiracy theories, including about Jewish power, money and influence. This is when we're asking Labour Friends of Israel about their sources of funding.
Israel and the Friends of Israel using anti-Semitism as a weapon to silence criticisms of Israel. This is an extremely dangerous phenomenon because Israel is a state. Zionism is the official ideology of that state. Anti-Semitism is the hatred of Jews because they are Jews. Anti-Zionism has nothing to do with anti-Semitism. But Israel and its friends have deliberately, I repeat, deliberately conflated anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism in order to discredit critics of Israel, in order to smear them. Now, the Labour Friends of Israel are the mainstream Jewish organization within the Labour Party. It's an openly, avowedly Zionist organization. To be a member of that organization, you have to be a Zionist and to accept the official ideology of the State of Israel.
I was wondering how you feel when you see how the Israeli government and its supporters use anti-Semitism as a way of countering the critics of Israeli policies.
I'm both a Jew and an Israeli, and in the mid-1960s, I served loyally and proudly in the IDF, because in those days, I believed the Israeli narrative that Israel is a small, peace-loving country surrounded by nasty Arabs who wanted to throw us into the sea. So we had no choice but to stand up and fight. But the turning point for me was the June 1967 war. For me personally, it was a turning point because the army in which I had served, it was the Israel Defense Forces, now became the brutal police force of a brutal colonial power. And my disenchantment with Israel has continued ever since. But it really accelerated in the last 2 years because of the Israeli atrocities in Gaza. And so in the last 2 years, I've become more and more alienated from Israel, and I feel I have much more in common with British Jews and Jews in the diaspora, because the core values of Judaism are altruism, truth, justice, and peace. And the Netanyahu government is the antithesis of these Jewish values.
Amen.
The essence of Judaism is nonviolence. This is the most violent and aggressive and belligerent and openly racist government in Israel's history.
Capitol Hill, as we're hearing from Representative Comer speaking after there, he was holding that meetings on holding the Clintons in contempt. Let's listen in.
Produced all of the Epstein files it's supposed to?
It's my understanding the Attorney General is going to turn over all the documents once they're redacted. Now, we have seen the Attorney General comply with our subpoena. They have turned over documents, as I said numerous times today, and I've said numerous times on most of the networks that are here today. We would like for the pace to pick up. We want...
I don't trust this man.
To get the documents. We're not going to let her off the hook, but from a legal standpoint, she is complying with the law, and we expect to get the documents very soon.
In addition to your subpoena, though, are you concerned that she has not complied with?
No, with my subpoena, she's complied. She's turning over documents again.
But also the Epstein files.
Well, the Epstein Files Transparency Act is a Judiciary Committee thing. They put a date on it. She's going to be in front of the Judiciary Committee in 2 weeks, and I think that's the important thing with what the Democrats were trying to say today about Bondi. And look, no one on our side is defending Bondi. Let me be very clear. No one on our side is defending Bondi. But we have to recognize there are a lot of documents. They produced documents, I think, on 2 different document drops. The first one...
I'd recommend getting a genetic methylation test. Okay. And how it...
The Democrats complained there were not enough redactions. In the second drop, they complained there were too many redactions. So, ever how many pages, we've heard numbers range from several 100,000 to several million pages of document. That's a lot of eyes that are going to have to be over it and review it to try to make the redactions, because the victims have made it clear to us that they want anything pertaining to their privacy redacted. And that's the impression I'm under that the Department of Justice is trying to do.
Mr. Chairman, is it important? Is there still an opportunity for the Clintons to negotiate some sort of satisfaction of the subpoena, even though you've taken the step with contempt?
There's always an opportunity. It's going to be 2 weeks before this is on the floor. We're going to have to notice this is going to be treated like any other bill. We're making sure every I is dotted and every T is crossed because they have a very expensive legal team. So obviously, there are going to be a couple of more days this week, depending on the weather. Then there'll be 3 days' notice, and then we can vote on it. I've been assured we're going to vote on it. So that's 2 weeks because we're going to be off a week. They're going to have 2 weeks that they're going to theoretically be able to negotiate. But one thing that I want to make very clear, a lot of what the Democrats were saying today, and I'm not accusing the Democrats on the committee of lying. I'm accusing the lawyers for the Clintons of not being truthful. They were not in good faith negotiating. They never made a proposal where there would be an actual transcript. And I don't think anyone in the media would accept any type of interview without a transcript. Then you're going to have notes, and it's going to be Clinton's word against my word, Garcia's word against my word. That's no good. You know, there should be a recorded, at the very least, transcript, if not audio and video. I would argue all three of the deposition. That is the law. That is what is considered legal in court, and I don't think anyone in the media would argue against that. So, yes.
Thank you, Chairman Comer. What specific steps will oversight Republicans take to ensure that the Clintons are not treated differently than others who have been held in contempt of Congress, like Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro?
Well, the process will be once it goes on the full House floor, and I expect a lot of Democrats to vote on this on the floor. And then it'll be delivered to the Department of Justice, and I think that question then can be asked to the Attorney General.
Mr. Chairman, the argument from the Clintons was that they had provided sworn declarations when they received the subpoena and were asked to testify. They argue that other folks who were asked to testify, you accepted the sworn declarations, but you wouldn't accept it as feasible for them. Why weren't the sworn declarations enough for the Clintons?
Because the people that we accepted the sworn depositions from, they replied that they had no relationship and they weren't directly involved in the Epstein investigation. There are no pictures of Merrick Garland or James Comey or Eric Holder who are Democrats, I might add, and Jeff Sessions, who's a Republican. Those were the four that we accepted the declarations from. There's no evidence that anyone's seen, no pictures anyone's seen of them with Epstein or Maxwell, nor is there any evidence that they were directly involved in the investigation. Now, if we find out those declarations are false, then they've committed perjury, and they know that. So they complied with our subpoena. And again, there was no evidence. And remember, let's be very clear here. This all came about from a subcommittee hearing in this room where Democrats made a motion, Summer Lee, to subpoena the Epstein files, and then Scott Perry made an amendment and put all these names on it, and everyone voted for it. That's how the whole Epstein investigation was born in the Oversight Committee, and that's where the names came from. Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton. Everyone besides the Clintons have complied, and 2 Republicans actually sat down for hard-hitting depositions. You can look at the transcripts with Barr and Acosta, and the Republicans weren't any less confrontational with their questioning than the Democrats. We are sincere. We want to know the answers. We want to get the truth to the American people. We expect Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice to deliver the documents, and we hope that people are finally held accountable for crimes. And we want to know why did the government drop the ball for the victims, and how can this be prevented in the future?
When do you expect Pam Bondi to release those documents? It's been more than a month since the statutory deadline, and there have only been 2 drops of documents. You say you're confident the Attorney General will comply. When do you expect the full documents to be out, and is there a deadline by which you expect her to produce the documents, or else you would pursue something like contempt?
I was hoping the documents would be dropped today, or whatever they've redacted thus far. I would be shocked if some of the documents aren't dropped before her testimony for the Judiciary Committee. You're all going to be there. And that was another argument when the Democrats were coming back with Bondi. She's coming in front of Congress. Now, she's coming in front of the Judiciary Committee because, among other things, the discharge petition is a judiciary jurisdiction. So if we're not satisfied with testimony from judiciary, I could see a scenario where we ask her to come in front of the oversight. We're serious about getting the documents. This isn't political. Remember, one of the things that I said in this hearing today, one of the first demands one of the first requests from the victims when we met privately, Republicans and Democrats, for 2 hours, is subpoena the estate. I did that. I had no idea what was going to be in those documents. It could have been very damaging to Republicans. It could have been very damaging to very important people. I had no idea. We want the truth. No one on my committee said, don't subpoena the estate. We want it. Everyone voted for the discharge petition except one. We want the documents. We want to get answers. We want to hold people accountable, and we're not protecting anyone who committed any crimes.
Given the point you made about the photos and the personal relationship that former President Clinton had with Jeffrey Epstein, should President Trump also be subpoenaed because he had a personal relationship with Epstein?
Well, obviously, President Trump's answered a lot of questions, and I'm looking around the room, and many of you have asked President Trump questions about Epstein, and I'm confident President Trump's going to have to answer, more questions from you all. You're very curious.
Under oath by your committee.
Well, there's never been a sitting president come under oath in an oversight committee hearing, but we'll see what. How this plays out. We want to get the truth. And look, I'll go back to what Bill Barr said, who I don't think anyone would argue is a big fan of President Trump. He said under oath in the deposition that he believed.
That doesn't mean anything. Bill Barr, he is so complicit and dirty. Ruby Ridge, Waco too, I believe, right? Bill Barr, whose father was Epstein's mentor. Give me a break. It's a waste of my time.
Christmas ornaments, drywall, and Jerry Epstein. Name 3 things that don't hang themselves. That's what the American people think. That's what the American people think. And they deserve some answers. And I know that you're not in charge of these investigations.
Yes, sir.
But you talk to the people who are. And I need you to take a very respectful message today. Tell the American people what happened. And don't rush it so that they don't do a thorough investigation. But you and I both know they can make this a top priority and get it done more quickly than they normally would.
As I indicated in my opening statement, I wanted to talk about the death of Mr. Epstein. Do you concur with the opinion that it was a suicide?
That was the finding of the coroner, sir.
Okay. Do you have any evidence to suggest otherwise?
I do not.
How could this have happened?
Unfortunately, sir, the death and the whole situation is still under the investigation of the FBI and the Inspector General's office, and I'm really not at liberty to discuss specifics of this case. I can discuss issues around institutional operations, but I can't specifically talk about that particular issue.
Okay. With a case this high profile, there's got to be either major malfunction of the system or a criminal enterprise at foot to allow this to happen. So are you looking at both? Is the FBI looking at both?
If the FBI is involved, then they are looking at criminal enterprise, yes.
Do we have people in custody today of this high-profile nature? Have we done anything to adjust since Mr. Epstein's death?
Sir, we take every inmate's life very seriously in the Bureau of Prisons. A high-profile inmate is no more important or significant in terms of our operations than just the average inmate that comes our way.
I mean high-profile, somebody's on a suicide watch.
I would like to explain our suicide watch system, if I may. I can't talk specifically about Epstein, but we have different tiers of response if we identify an inmate who appears to be having suicidal thinking. And I came into the Bureau as a psychologist. I worked with lots of suicidal inmates. I was warden in our psychiatric facility in Butner, and I know how difficult it is to always be able to predict who is suicidal and who is not. But once an inmate is identified as potentially suicidal, we have a suicide watch operation that we can place them in. It's a very stark, very difficult setting where everything is stripped from the room except a mattress. They get a coarse gown-like to wear that cannot be twisted in any way that they could hang themselves from it. They have one mattress and one blanket, and they are watched constantly. There's nothing else in that room.
Was Mr. Epstein on suicide watch?
Yes, he was. However, the average time on suicide watch is only about 24 hours because it is such a stark and actually depressing situation. We then can move them to another tier of observation, which is called psychological observation.
Did that happen in this case?
I can't speak specifically, but I am sharing this with you so that you understand our procedure, sir. They then can move to another tier, which is psychological observation, where they get their clothes back. They're in a more normalized setting. They are watched and scrutinized every moment of the day, but that is a much more normal environment.
Do they have roommates?
I'm sorry, sir?
Do they have roommates?
No, they do not when they're on psychological observation because they're being watched continuously.
Did Mr. Epstein have a roommate when he allegedly committed suicide?
No, he did not.
Okay. But
they move into psychological observation. Psychologists see them routinely, interview them repeatedly, and once it's determined that the threat of suicide seems to have passed, then that inmate can be returned back to open population.
Well, clearly it didn't work here, so we'll await the report because all the victims of Mr. Epstein have to have their heart ripped out. Else they'll never see justice.
Dr. Sawyer, can you think of any other incidents in the history of the BOP that have caused as much crisis for public trust for your institution as Epstein's death?
I can only speak for since 1976 when I joined the Bureau. I don't know prior to that, but I would say it's probably gotten the most public attention.
There are lots of taxpayers and citizens who've never thought about the BOP, and you have lots of good, patriotic, hardworking folks there. I get that. But in terms of a crisis of public trust in general, but also in terms of your workforce, this death happened in the middle of August, early August. It's Thanksgiving, and you're here to testify today, and you say you're not allowed to speak about this incident. I think that's crazy. Can you distinguish among types of investigations, at least for us? Because I'm aware of at least 3 Epstein investigations. You got a whole bunch of women who were raped by this guy. This is a sex trafficking ring in the United States. This guy had evidence. He's got co-conspirators, and there are victims out there who want to know where the evidence has gone. Can you tell us a little bit more about the different investigations? I understand there's at least one that you're directed by Main Justice not to speak about, but there are at least 3 investigations. Can you unpack them, please?
There are 2 investigations that are ongoing. One is the FBI's investigation, and the other is the Inspector General's investigation.
Both inside BOP, but there's a third one outside, which is why Epstein was in your institution to begin with.
Yeah, and that, sir, is completely out of my...
I get that. There's a lot here where DOJ has failed. There's a lot here that BOP has failed. Let's just be clear so we have a level set for everybody in this room. You're in your job because of this crisis, right? You come here today and you say you can't testify about it, but the reason you're director now is because the last guy got fired, right?
Senator, I can't tell you what I don't know. I have received no information from the FBI investigation yet, nor no information from the Inspector General. Once those entities go into one of our facilities, we are forbidden from talking to anybody in the institution. We can send in a team and look at wherever there might have been a security flaw or something, but we are not allowed to talk to anybody in our institutions about anything that happened over the Epstein.
With all due respect, you still have an obligation to speak to the girls who were raped by this guy today. You may not have to speak about every particular of the guards that were arrested last night, but the fact that there is an ongoing attempt by the United States government to find out if there's still any evidence about the co-conspirators, you do have an obligation to speak to those girls who were raped today. You may not speak about the specifics of the charges against those 2 guards this morning who were taken into custody, but more broadly, you should be able to unpack. Have we changed any processes about how cases like this are handled? It's been more than 90 days, and you said, I think your quote was, we treat every inmate the same. We believe in America that every individual has equal dignity, but not every inmate has equal value for future criminal investigations. Jeffrey Epstein was still to testify in a case. Somebody who's already been convicted, who may be on suicide watch, there are lots of good reasons to not want that guy to be able to kill himself. This is different because it isn't just about the individual inmate who might kill themselves. It's about the fact that that bastard wasn't able to testify against his other co-conspirators. So it is wrong as a management matter for you to say we treat everybody the same. We should be treating people who are yet to testify against other felons, against other rapists. They have a lot more priority for your institution, don't they?
Senator, pretty much all of our inmates that are in any of our jail facilities are pretrial. They're still yet to testify, to be involved, to share information on other cases. I don't know what evidence you're asking of me. If you're saying, was there any evidence in his room, in his possession at the time?
No,
that was all confiscated by the FBI.
In his brain and in the cameras and in the tapes that the American public well understands appear to not be urgent enough for the Department of Justice.
No, it's very urgent for the Department of Justice, and it's all been confiscated by the FBI, and it's all part of their investigation. That's why none of that is shared with the Director of the Bureau of Prisons or anyone in the Bureau until the investigations are completed. Once those are completed, I'd be very happy to come up here and talk with any one of you that want to hear everything about we glean from those investigations. But until I have that information, there's nothing I can tell you. If I don't have the information, I cannot share anything with you.
Then how widespread is the problem of sleeping on the job? There are lots of people in the public who think this seems a very convenient excuse. And so Tell us, is it a systemic problem? Do we have a lot of people who sleep on the job when they're supposed to be guarding federal inmates?
We have a few, sir, and we have been monitoring the cameras that are existing in every one of our institutions to determine how well and how effectively our our staff members are doing their rounds and counts in the institutions. We have found a couple of other instances, and we have immediately referred those to the Inspector General's office, and I'm encouraging that if people just chose not to do their job, we're hoping the U.S. Attorney's Office will pick up those cases and prosecute them for us, because we don't want those people in the Bureau of Prisons. They are dangerous to everybody, the inmates and the staff. And so we are zealously going about trying to determine which of our employees are good employees and who do their job, and that is the vast majority of the prison staff. But we do have some, I know, out there who obviously choose not to follow policy, choose not to do their job, and we want them gone. I do not want them in our institutions, and I am exploring those very, very carefully to identify them and get them out of our system. Now, if it's a training problem and they didn't know what they were supposed to do, that's our problem. That's management's problem. We have to do a better job training our staff. But if someone is well-trained, well-experienced, and chooses not to do their job, we want them gone. I assure you of that.
I'm at time, so I'll just give you a preview of something I'm going to ask you for the record after the event. You made a really important statement about drone drops of different kinds of contraband into your institutions. That's obviously a new and hard problem. That's a problem against which we have to play defense, but there's also new opportunities for offense. And so what your long-term strategy is inside the institution about cameras is something that I think a lot of us would like to hear more, and I'll send you a letter with some questions. Because Epstein's hallway should have still been monitored by cameras, even if his guards were asleep. And we don't have information about whether or not there were adequate cameras there. And so I think a lot of us would like to understand where technology dollars are going.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Blumenthal's next, but just follow up on this. Will there be an IG report regarding what happened?
There should be. Usually after the Inspector General's office investigates, they do come out with a report.
If people are pending criminal charges, we're not going to interfere in their cases. But if there's an IG report, I promise you we'll get fully briefed by the committee here.
How can I put this? Christmas ornaments, drywall, and Jerry Epstein. Name three things that don't hang themselves. That's what the American people think. That's what the American people think. And they deserve some answers. And I know that you're not in charge of these investigations.
Yes, sir.
But you talk to the people who are. And I need you to take a very respectful message today. Tell the American people what happened. And don't rush it so that they don't do a thorough investigation. But you and I both know they can make this a top priority and get it done more quickly than they normally would.
Subscribe to One in.
Okay.
Is that your account?
I refuse to answer questions without my lawyer present, so I really don't know how to answer that question either way.
Like I said, you're not
This
going
is
to jail.
freedom of speech. This is America, right?
And
I'm a veteran.
And I agree with you 100%. So we're just trying to see if it's you, because if we're not talking to the right person, we want to go see who the right person is.
Okay, how can I help you?
So pretty much it's just a statement that was made as far as,
verbatim, it says the guy who consistently calls for the death of all Palestinians, tried to shut down a theater for showing a movie that hurt his feelings, and refuses to stand up for the LGBTQ community in any way. Even leaves the room when they vote and on related matters. Wants you to know that you are all welcome. Clown face, clown face, clown face. 3 days ago.
You don't know if it was you?
I'm not going to answer whether that's me or not.
Okay.
The concerning part, and not concerning for the person who's posting it, what we're just trying to prevent is somebody else getting agitated or agreeing with the statement. We're not saying it's true or not.
Understood.
That guy who consistently calls for the death of all Palestinians, that can probably incite somebody to do something radical. That's all we're here to talk about. And we wanted to get your side. If it was you that posted that, I would think to refrain from posting things like that, because that could get something
I
inciting.
appreciate your concern. I appreciate you coming out here.
Okay?
That's it?
That is it. I'm going to maintain my my amendment rights to not answer the question about whether or not that's me. I hope that's understandable.
We appreciate it.
Thank you as well.
Okay?
You as well. Thank you. Take care.
Miami Beach Police Chief Wayne Jones gave a statement on Friday about why detectives were sent to Pacheco's home. Given the real ongoing national and international concerns surrounding anti-Semitic attacks and recent rhetoric that has led to violence against political figures, I directed 2 of my detectives to initiate a brief voluntary conversation regarding certain inflammatory, potentially insightful false remarks made by a resident to ensure there was no immediate threat to the elected official or the broader community that might emerge as a result of the post, Jones said in a press release. Now this is the real Gestapo.